I want to turn now to Jason Selvig, a comedian and one half of you might know him from Good Liars, the political comedy duo, and V. Spear is a journalist, podcast host, and founder of Under the Desk News. I wanted to talk to both of you. Thank you so much to both of you for being here. I wanted to talk to both of you because the two of you, through what you do and the way that you talk to people, are closer to ordinary Americans, I think, than most journalists today. And Jason, I just want to start with you. Authentic was the word that you used as we were watching that. What strikes you about Troy Jackson?
I think there's an authenticity with him. And I think, obviously he's been working, his family's been working in Maine for a really long time. But you heard it, and he said it, and his campaign staff was saying he didn't sleep beforehand. And you could tell there was a little bit of nerves going on. But I honestly found that a little refreshing, because you see politicians get up there, they're polished, and they've got their lines. And he really felt like he was speaking from the heart, which was great. And he's running against Susan Collins, and obviously it's not ideal for the Democrats to be having an election again. Well, with 100 days before the election, they have a new candidate.
As of tomorrow.
Yeah, as of tomorrow. And then obviously 2024, a very similar thing happened on the national stage. That's not ideal, but they have an authentic candidate who's going against someone who, when they first ran in 1996, said, I'm going to serve for 2 terms. And now here we are 30 years later. She's 73 years old. She's going to be 80 if she were to win in November. She might retire and then run for president at that point, because she'll be old enough to do that at that point. But I think he has the authenticity. I think that's important going into the election in November.
Let me bring you in here because I have been in your comment section on your page, and I have seen how passionate people are about the politics of the moment, especially just ordinary people. How do you think Democrats should frame the narrative of this race moving forward to connect with the type of people that you hear from every day?
So I think what's really interesting about Maine is I don't think of Mainers and all the work I've ever done in Maine as being Democrats or Republicans. They're Mainers first, their neighbors first, their community and coalition first. So Troy Jackson coming in at this point in the race is just picking up the work where somebody else left off. I don't feel like he's going to be behind. And I think it's very clear that the state of Maine is with him. And I think it helps us break this curse we have that all federal electeds are supposed to be acting in exclusively the national perspective of what the nation is deciding the senator from Maine needs to do. And I think what Troy Jackson's going to be able to do is say that he understands those working class values that Mainers have and inspire other people to put forth a candidate that's maybe not the perfect vessel, maybe not the most trained, maybe not the most perfect guy, but who really understands his community, his people, and stands up for doing the right thing.
One of the things that he was speaking about earlier today is that Susan Collins has this rep of just being so concerned about everything, concerned about cutting Medicare, concerned about cutting taxes, concerned about the justices, even though they ultimately ended up overturning Roe v. Wade, which she said she didn't want to see happen, concerned about the funding for ICE, yet she funded it anyway, as Troy Jackson continues his remarks here to the room in Bangor, Maine, and in her own state, in Biddeford, Maine. Yet another person is killed, at the hands of federal law enforcement immigration agents in this largest mass deportation campaign in American history. What do you hear in all of that messaging as Troy Jackson, a longtime politician but not familiar to the national stage, is trying to appeal to people as he takes on Susan Collins?
What I think his asset could be here is the fact that he's not friends with people in the Senate. He's not coming into a system that she's been entrenched in for all of this time, where her loyalties are to the Republican Party, to Donald Trump, to other people that she likes to go to dinner with. Something that I felt as an outsider coming into the journalism world even is when we're in these established places, you're like, what is going on here? And I just picture Troy Jackson coming up there as a regular guy and being able to spot those blind spots that Maine has had with Susan Collins all this time. He's going to come in and be like, that doesn't make sense to the average person. Like, let's not do that. It's sort of what we saw with Zohran Mamdani. Look at how much he's been able to do in 7 months because he's not indentured to the establishment. He didn't come up through the ranks and people in the political class, anything. He just came in and was like, hey, let's just do what I said I was going to do.
What do you think, Jason, about, you talk to so many Trump supporters in such a brilliant way. What would you ask them about this race in Maine if you had the opportunity? I'm sure you will.
Well, it's actually interesting. I was just down for July 4th, and we went to the Great American State Fair and actually talked to a woman from Maine at length about the campaign that was happening, and this was before there was the big shakeup in the race. But she said that she was an independent thinker and said she would give Democrats a shot every once in a while. She also had a Trump hat on and said that she has a Trump 2028 flag in her yard that she uses just to troll her neighbors. She's like, Trump won't run.
He's doing it too. He did it at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last night.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that the diehard Trump supporters, they're not going to be switching their vote. I don't think they're not going to vote for a Democrat. But like V was saying, like there's more of a libertarian feel in Maine. And when we talk to people from Maine and New Hampshire, they really will go either way, especially if they think somebody is kind of against the establishment.
Oh, especially in Aroostook County, where Troy Jackson is from. As a matter of fact, just to the control room, can we take a little dip back into Troy Jackson? I'm curious just to hear what he's talking about right now.
Because we can together, shoulder to shoulder, we can defeat Susan Collins, and we can take back that Senate seat. And we can build a government that finally works for working Mainers, not the power brokers who write the biggest checks anymore. But look, there's never been a campaign that I won on my own. And this one, I cannot do it alone. Because this campaign, honestly, belongs to all of us. I can feel it every time I talk to somebody, the belief that there has to be a change in our government. There has to be a way that works for us. So if you've ever been ignored, underestimated, pushed around, or told that you have to wait your turn while the rich cut the line, I'm asking you to stand with us in this campaign.
Troy Jackson appealing to people not just in Maine but all across the country. We have a news statement that's in just now from the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee on Troy Jackson. This is from Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand. Troy Jackson is a fifth-generation logger with a demonstrated ability to win, a champion for affordable health care and working people. Jackson has harnessed the grassroots energy in Maine and is well-positioned to defeat Susan Collins, who is more vulnerable than she ever has been before. Collins is facing record-low approval ratings after she voted with Trump 96% of the time, was the decisive vote for the justices who overturned Roe v. Wade, and sold out to the special interests that fund her campaigns after 3 decades. In the Senate in November, we will defeat Susan Collins and win a Senate majority. V, I feel like people in Maine and across the country have heard Chuck Schumer and Senator Gillibrand say that before. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't care what they said just then. What I care about is what Troy Jackson just said, which is if you've ever felt left behind, if you feel like the rich cut the line while you're still down there working extra hours, this campaign is for you. That is how Trump won, appealing to working class people who felt disenfranchised by the elite class. And so I think that Troy Jackson's going to be able to pick up these votes with or without approval from the corporate Democrats. And I think that he can pull a lot of former Susan Collins or Trump loyalist voters with the type of talking that he's doing, which is truly just about regular people getting a fair cut.
That again, that's what this is all about. And Jason, V says regular people getting a fair cut. You talk to more ordinary people than most folks do. What do they want?
Right now, I mean, I think a lot of people, even Trump supporters now, want there to be an end to the war in Iran. They want the gas prices to come down. It's affordability more than anything. And I think that's why when Donald Trump attacks the affordability issue, it's kind of a losing message for him. But Trump voters and then everyone else, like Trump voters and the rest of the country, we could all come together on one thing. We don't want to be spending too much money, and we don't want to be taken advantage of by powerful people. And that's why this is there was a powerful message here in New York, and it's a powerful message there in Maine, and it's hopefully something that Democrats across the country are going to learn from and say, hey, we're going to stick up for the little guy in a real meaningful way. And that means you can't be taking a lot of money from billionaires who might not have your best interests.
And you heard it there from Troy Jackson, who has now secured the Democratic nomination for the Senate in Maine. If Troy Jackson or anybody on his campaign is watching right now, we got 1 more hour of Connect coming up. So give us a call on the MS Now bat phone. And Troy Jackson is welcome here on this broadcast at any time in the next hour. I want to thank comedian and writer Jason Selvig and V. Spear, host and creator of Under the Desk News, for joining us during this early morning and afternoon now of breaking news out of Maine. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.